across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. This is Talk, and it is Petrie. Sorry, I was just sorting out the air conditioning because it's very warm in here. Very good to have your company this evening, and of course don't forget at midnight we have the phone in, your chance to talk back. And there is only really one conversation at the moment, isn't there, and that is Keir Starmer. So I do want to hear from you about Keir Starmer. Is he delusional? Is he delusional when he says things like, well, I've got a 5-year mandate from the British people, especially when his polling has gone so badly wrong for him? Does he still have that mandate from you? Should he test this mandate with a general election? He could do that. He could do that. But could we cope with the disruption of yet another Prime Minister? I mean, goodness me, we've been through it, haven't we, with all this infighting and all of the stuff that goes on in Westminster. Could we cope with the disruption of another Prime Minister? And are you sick of this sort of insider bickering? Because I am. It's like, while they're concentrating on each other, while they're concentrating on, you know, who's going to be next and who's going to be the next Prime Minister and who should it be and who shouldn't it be and should we do this and should we do that, they're not running the country. They're not. They're not concentrating on us. They're not doing what we want them to do. They're all just looking around for their own benefit. So I want to hear from you, actually, if you believe that Keir Starmer still has the mandate, or whether he should test that mandate with a general election. And if he did, would you vote Labour? Has it been destroyed? Is it over for Labour for quite some considerable time? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Calls charged, are charged at the national rate, but we do call you straight back. And you can text the word talk and your message to 87222. Could we really cope with another Prime Minister? I don't know. Maybe it's better the devil you know. Oh, I don't know. I don't know anymore. But anyway, I look forward to chatting with you about that. Other things that are coming up, we're going to be talking about the UK criminals that have been deported from the United States of America. At least 35, 22 of them we think have already come back to the UK. The worst of the worst being deported from the US. We're also going to be talking about Jimmy Lai, the Hong Kong pro-democracy media tycoon, who is now been given a life sentence, or a death sentence, his son is calling it. The man is 78 years old. So much for our relationship with China, huh? And can we really get into bed with China when they're treating a British citizen in this way? So that is to come. But with regards to the UK Prime Minister, how do we get a new Prime Minister? It's very different for Labour than it is for the Tories. The Tories, of course, they have the 1922 committee, they all send in letters, but there are various ways to get rid of Keir Starmer. So I wanted to find out what those ways were and what you and I should look out for if they are looking to get rid of Starmer. The Prime Minister has spent the day fighting for his job as Labour has descended into civil war over Peter Mandelson's ties to Epstein. Scottish Labour leader Anna Sawar, that was a bolt from the blue, wasn't it, called for him to resign earlier in the day. However, cabinet ministers have rallied around him shortly after, releasing statements of support on social media. But is he just there because they haven't got anyone else? I mean, that's not a very good reason to be Prime Minister, is it? Starmer addressed a parliamentary Labour meeting where he said that he is not prepared to walk away. He has a mandate from us, and he said that he's won every fight that he's ever had. has he? But how does Labour get rid of a Prime Minister? Well, joining me to discuss this is Dr. Craig Prescott, who is a constitutional law expert from Royal Holloway University of London. It's good to speak to you again, Craig.
Hello, it's good to join you.
So, listen, it is. There are many ways to skin a cat. There are a few ways to get rid of a Labour Prime Minister. This is quite rare, isn't it? We don't see it with Labour. We see it a lot with the Tories. We've seen it a lot with the Tories. We saw a bit of shenanigans around Gordon Brown. We saw a little bit of shenanigans around Tony Blair as well, who was then replaced by Gordon Brown. But on the whole, they tend to stick with who they've got, don't they?
Yes, generally, sort of history would tell us that Labour prime ministers are harder to move from office than a Conservative prime minister. You gave the example of Blair, sort of a long-standing prime minister. He ultimately decided to resign when he felt the time was right. Was perhaps a little bit too long for Gordon Brown to wait, perhaps, but generally, yes, they sort of remain in office. Harold Wilson remained in office, and then he chose to resign midway through the 74-79 Parliament, and Jim Callaghan took over after a leadership contest. You know, in essence, Starmer could resign, which would trigger a leadership contest, or he could be challenged if a Labour MP has support of 20% of the other Labour MPs.
Which is about 80 MPs, isn't it? That he would.
Yes, my maths tell me it's 81, but 81, yes, it's sort of.
I'm not very good at maths. I knew it was around 80. So what do we look out for when people are on manoeuvres here? Because, you know, there could be a no confidence, which is how Liz Truss went out, wasn't it, really? She knew she didn't, after that budget, have the confidence of the party. And Keir Starmer, if a couple of bigwigs were to resign, like Lammy or Yvette Cooper or whatever, around him, and said, look, this, but that's a manoeuvre, isn't it? That is a method at which they get rid of him.
Well, that's when they put pressure on. So fundamentally, regardless of any leadership rules, a prime minister remains in office as long as they have the support of their cabinet and their MPs. You know, so the hard politics of this is that if you start to see cabinet ministers resigning, then he's on very, very dodgy territory. We saw that with Boris Johnson in 2022, when he was simply no longer able to form a government because so many ministers resigned and he couldn't replace them. He knew the game was up and announced his resignation. So in a sense, there are two methods here for Labour MPs. They could do the 20% route if they can coalesce around a particular candidate, or they could just put pressure on Starmer that in practice the game's up, he has to resign, and then there's a leadership contest.
He could he could resign and stay in place, couldn't he, in order to allow that leadership contest to continue without disrupting, without actually putting the king in an awkward position as well.
Yes, absolutely. So if he when we talk about resigning, we talk about really him resigning as Labour Party leader. To trigger the leadership contest, he remains in office, but perhaps not in power, while the leadership contest runs, and then at the outcome of the leadership contest, whoever wins, Starmer resigns, and then the king will send for the winner of the contest to be the next prime minister.
It's interesting to me that we're always told as voters that we don't vote for a man, we vote for a party. But Keir Starmer seems to have adopted the attitude that he has the mandate to rule for the 5 years. That's not right, is it? That's not true.
No, it's sort of in terms of our constitutional system, it's ultimately up to the MPs that form the government as to who the leader is at any one time, ultimately. So you could say that Labour has a mandate for the next 5 years. But, you know, it's open to the Labour Party to change their leader if they wish, you know, and that wouldn't, you know, require a general election or anything like that. We have a parliament, we have a party that has a good majority. It's not as if that majority is going to go away over the next few months or years. So, you know, who the leader of the Labour Party is and Prime Minister is ultimately up to Labour MPs. The curious thing then becomes, if there is a Labour leadership contest, then there's one or two stages, but there is a vote of the party members. They choose who the next leader of the Labour Party will be, just like the Conservatives do.
Unless you're Tony Blair, of course.
Well, yes, he was.
They had a deal.
Yes, well, it's sort of with Gordon Brown. It was sort of, he was so obviously going to be the next prime minister. He just became leader by acclamation. He was the only one who got nominations, and so there is always a point with all this that yes, you have the technical rules that we discuss, but there's also the hard politics of this. And you saw this when Rishi Sunak became Prime Minister. It hadn't gone well, to put it mildly, with Liz Truss. There was no desire to have a really sort of another long-winded leadership contest, and so he just became the leader as the only candidate with the number of votes the 1922 committee specified, which was 100, I think. So they really set it up, the 1922 committee, so that there would only be one candidate, and that was Sunak. But the 1922 committee for the Conservative Party has so much more flexibility. It effectively sets the rules for each leadership contest as they come along, in terms of how many MPs need to support a candidate and what have you. Labour is much more formal. That 20% rule is there. They need to get support of constituency Labour parties and organisations affiliated to Labour, including trade unions. And then if they meet all these different things, they go to the next phase, which is a vote of the Labour membership. So there's more for a candidate for the Labour leadership contest to do than a Conservative leadership contender.
But could Keir Starmer be on the ticket as well if there's a leadership contest? Would he be allowed to apply for the job again, if you like?
Yes, he could. So if he was challenged for the leadership, an MP got 20% of the Labour Party to support him, then the leadership contest is triggered, and Starmer, if he wishes, could take part in that. There are precedents of that, of a fashion for a prime minister to take on his party. John Major did this in the 1990s, in a sense of put up or shut up, as I think he said.
Yeah, so that was the line, yeah.
You know, so in a sense, none of this is always new. There's always precedents for these types of things to happen, and even Jeremy Corbyn, he was challenged for the leadership contest, but he won. He prevailed over Owen Smith. That was 2016, if my memory's right. So there was a 20% sort of support for another candidate, triggered the contest. Corbyn stirred, and he won, and that secured him as Labour leader until the next election, which of course Labour did badly in, and that ended up with Starmer as being the Labour leader. So if he's confident of support amongst his MPs, then he might, you know, the lesson from Corbyn is sort of get on with it. And if he wins the contest, then he politically would be safe. But whether he's in that position or not is, I think, another question.
Could Keir Starmer say, OK, then we're going to the polls? We'll have a general election. I believe I have the mandate of the country, sweeping majority. We're going back. We're going to have a general election. I mean, not that I think he would, but could he?
This is a bit of a murky question, because to get a general election, he has to go to the King and request a dissolution of Parliament. That's the process that triggers an election, because once Parliament's dissolved, there's no MP, so we have an election to choose a new Parliament. Now, the King can, in theory, refuse a request to dissolve Parliament, And one of the reasons he could refuse to dissolve Parliament is if the existing Parliament is still vital and still capable of performing its function. And Labour has a big majority. So it is like, constitutionally, you wouldn't necessarily say a general election is required. Having said all that, I'm sure that if Starmer wanted a general election, the King wouldn't necessarily stand in his way. It would be an extraordinary move for the King to do that. But I can't think necessarily of a clear precedent of a party with a very, very good, strong majority sort of calling a general election this early into a parliament.
But if he's so certain that he has this mandate, which is why I'm asking that question, there seems to be maybe a bit of tone deafness or arrogance. I don't know which one it is, but in principle he could do that and say, right, well, we'll just go back to the country then. If he wanted to throw the baby out with the bathwater, he could do that.
He could, in theory, yes, but when you look at the polls, you think that's very unlikely.
Very unlikely. I know. I accept that.
Kamikaze mission, I think.
It would be a ridiculous thing to do, and of course it plays right into reform at this stage. But I just wanted to know constitutionally if that was something that could happen.
Yes, he could. Like I say, like parliaments that normally end after 2 years, 2.5 years or so, those were political, where there's a very small majority, or a government might have even lost the majority through by-elections and what have you. He could do it, but it would be very unlikely because he's still got 2 or 3 years, and so do you think he has? I mean, as somebody who's a constitutional expert, right? You've seen these shenanigans happen. I mean, we all got a schooling in Tory manoeuvres, didn't we? A very short shrift. I don't know. I can't remember how many prime ministers we had, but anyway, enough that we were bored of it. What is your sense at the moment with Sir Keir Starmer? I mean, does it feel like he's only there because they haven't got their ducks in a row yet to replace him, or does it feel like they genuinely support himself? I think we're a little way from Starmer sort of resigning. I think one thing we're sort of in a sense of suspense here for the May elections. Yeah. Where you have the elections to the Scottish Parliament and to the Welsh Parliament as well. And clearly, if those go really badly, that's a test of electoral opinion, and that would be sort of hard data that the Labour Party are doing badly, and particularly if they do badly in Wales, which is a Labour heartland traditionally, that would really make MPs sort of, I think, worry about, what the next general election would look like, and that might be the moment to change. As things stand, it seems a little bit odd to sort of put a new Prime Minister in now, or, well, it might get mid-March, April, and then they have the potentially terrible results in May.
They've got a by-election coming up in 2 weeks, haven't they?
Well, they do, yes. So it makes sense, but constitutionally, that given the majority, it's a test of electoral opinion, but if they go from 404 to 403, not the end of the world. But politically, if they get really bad results in May, then, it makes sense to get Starmer in for that, keep him in for that, see what it all looks like, how it plays out, and then sort of make a move for a new leader. Because it would seem odd to sort of get the new leader in April. Yeah. Not enough time to turn it around, get these bad results, and that sort of, weakens their position politically even as a new PM. So it makes sense to start with a relatively clean slate in May, and then they have, maybe a King's speech to set out the legislative agenda, sort of, which is the big sort of annual reset.
Another reset, yeah, I was going to say.
It's sort
another reset.
But it's like the start of the political season. They can say, right, this is what we're going to do over the next 12 months. And, that's like a good moment to sort of come in, set your agenda, and then sort of see out the summer. And then you've got the party conferences in September, another big moment to establish yourself.
Yeah.
And then you can get going as Prime Minister. So another factor in all of this is the basic political calendar. When's the best time to do this?
Yeah. And just looking at the Mandelson issue, many people are saying this is the biggest constitutional scandal, political scandal since Profumo, or even more than Profumo. Do you agree with that? I mean, I know this is a gift that's going to keep on giving. We're going to find out more and more and more. Where I think we're at the foothills of the Epstein, Mandelson, Andrew Mountbatten, Windsor story. Is this that big a scandal?
Yes, I think it is, absolutely. It's sort of, I think in some ways it's the biggest scandal for decades. You could say it's bigger than Profumo. The idea of a senior cabinet minister leaking material, per se, that itself is bad enough. But to do it to someone like Jeffrey Epstein with, potential issues over money and what have you. This is utterly disgraceful stuff that Mandelson is accused of. I can't think of another parallel for something as serious as this.
Yeah.
And something that raises such fundamental questions as to our conduct of politics, sort of the vetting of cabinet ministers and those who become sort of ambassadors and what have you.
Yeah, it's
there's
crazy.
So many different questions sort of floating around with this that it will take some time to unpack.
And I don't know if your constitutional knowledge spreads as far as the royals, but could we see a former prince of the realm, if there were to be an arrest, could we see that happen? Can that happen? An arrest, and if it goes far and he's found guilty of anything, he obviously denies everything. The prison, I don't, or the tower. What do we do?
Yes, in theory, the only person who has immunity is the king.
Right.
Other members of the royal family don't have immunity at all, and indeed Princess Anne actually has a criminal record under the Dangerous Dogs Act. She had one of her dogs attacked her two children, if I remember right, sort of about 25 years ago or so.
Oh, wow.
And so she got fined, I think, in the glorious location of Slough Magistrates Court. So it's sort of like, so you have at the totally other end of the scale as sort of an example of, there's no immunity just because
there's
you're
nothing to stop that from happening.
No, it's sort of, and as we've seen, Buckingham Palace have said today that if necessary, they'll assist where possible.
Yeah. I mean, that is, again, an extraordinary statement from the King, isn't it? That I suppose going out and about in public and people saying, shouting at him and saying, how long have you known about Andrew? It clarifies the mind somewhat, crystallises.
Yes, absolutely. And, you do wonder if the never complain, never explain mantra of the monarchy really works in 2026 when there's something as serious as this. We've had the statement from Prince William this morning via his people. They're wanting to make clear that, if Andrew's under investigation, they won't stand in the way of that at all, and if necessary they will cooperate, and sort of what Andrew has been sort of accused of, alleged, is also extraordinary. The idea of a member of the royal family leaking official secrets is extraordinary, because all our constitutional system is about allegiance to the crown.
Absolutely.
And you imagine if you're working for MI5 or something, which is just sort of, people in these sorts of positions, they're appointed by the king, they're appointed by the crown if you're the head of the MI5 or whatever. And the idea of a member of the royal family sort of running against the national interest is just sort of unbelievable.
It really is. I mean, your head must be spinning. You must be rewriting those. Those laws. It's so good to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining me and for granting me permission to talk about all of that stuff. Dr. Craig Prescott there, a constitutional law expert from Royal Holloway University of London. Quick break, back in a second.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock, and of course at midnight there is Talkback, and I'd like you to do exactly that. I want to talk to you about Labour, about Keir Starmer. Do you think he's delusional, that he believes he still has the mandate of this country? And could we really cope with another Prime Minister? I mean, it looks likely. I don't know if it'll be now, but it looks likely that we might have to. But I just want to get a sense of where you are on all of this, and what you believe should happen, and whether you think that he really can't struggle on much longer. 0344 499 1000, and you can text me, put the word talk up front and then your message to 87222. I mean, you know where I stand. I have no faith in any of them, whatever persuasion they might be, but unfortunately that's not very helpful. Anyway, do give me a call. It'd be great to hear your voices. That hour is just about you, by the way. There are no guests, there's nobody else, it's just you and me, so please do take advantage of that. In the meantime, I don't know if you've been paying attention to this or you've heard the name Jimmy Lai around, and the fact that Keir Starmer was in China the other week and was, you know, talking to China about getting a better deal for us or whatever it is he was doing there, and he might have mentioned you. Anyway, I just thought you might like to know a little bit more about why this is significant and why this matters in a relationship, any future relationship we may have with China. Jimmy Lai is a Hong Kong pro-democracy media tycoon, and he's now been jailed for 20 years on national security related charges. That was just today. He's 78 years old, so 20 years is pretty much a life sentence. He's a British national and was given the harshest punishment. He's already spent 5 years, by the way, in solitary confinement. It's the highest punishment for what he did, and most prominent of hundreds arrested. A fierce critic of China, he often wielded his paper, the Apple Daily, as a tool of protest. Rights groups have criticised Prime Minister Keir Starmer's recent visit to China as a wasted opportunity to secure his release. Meanwhile, today the Home Office has announced a visa scheme to allow thousands more people from Hong Kong to build new lives in Britain following Jimmy Lai's political motivated prosecution. Hong Kongers who were minors at the time of the 1997 handover to China will be eligible to apply for the British National Overseas Pathway to UK citizenship independently of their parents, with 26,000 arrivals expected under the expanded scheme in the next 5 years. Well, joining us now to discuss this and why actually we've really let Hong Kong down is Thomas Benson, Senior Policy Advisor at Hong Kong Watch. Thomas, good to meet you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Let's first of all address the sentencing of Jimmy Lai. I mean, he was a big pro-democracy voice, but he deserved better protection, didn't he, from us?
Yes, thank you, Petrie. Yeah, it's been consistently disappointing that 5 years of advocacy on behalf of Jimmy Lai has not yielded in a better result today. We have seen over the last 5 years advocacy from practically every Western government, from biggest from Donald Trump to Borrell in the EU to Keir Starmer talking about Jimmy Lai, raising his case, but unfortunately all of that advocacy has not really resulted in the release that many were hoping for. And
no, I was just going to say, because I'm just going back to 1997 when we handed Hong Kong back to China. There was an understanding there, wasn't there, that the Chinese would not be as involved as they are today.
Absolutely. When Hong Kong was handed back to China, it had a mini constitution called the Basic Law, which was designed to erect essentially a firewall between the PRC and Hong Kong and maintain the rule of law, the capitalist economic system, which made Hong Kong one of the world's premier economic hubs. Unfortunately, since 2020, that has been trashed by the national security law, and Jimmy Lai's sentencing today is just a real chilling manifestation of what that attack on Hong Kong's basic freedoms has meant.
And we are powerless to do anything about the direction that Hong Kong is going in. I thought that was an implied that there would be the status quo from, like you said, the firewall between China rule and Hong Kong rule. What's gone wrong?
Yeah. Well, under the terms of the Sino-British Joint Declaration, the UK does have a responsibility towards Hong Kong, but unfortunately, under international law, there is no real mechanism through which the UK can directly press China on what it has done in Hong Kong. There are measures that can be introduced, of course. We can sanction key officials for their violation of that treaty. And we can introduce the B&O scheme to allow Hong Kongers who were British citizens prior to 1997 to come to the UK. And that's why the government has made this move today in response to the census.
What do you want the Keir Starmer to do now, or Yvette Cooper, or this government as a whole, for Jimmy Lai? Because his son has been on broadcast today saying that he hasn't seen his father or spoken to him for 5 years. He's been held in solitary confinement. He has, at 78, unsurprisingly, certain health conditions that he's worried about. And he feels that he's pretty much been abandoned to it.
Well, yes, and other governments, the United States, Canada, Australia, have secured the release of their citizens from jails in China, where those have become part of wider diplomatic negotiations. It's no secret that the UK government wants some form of trade deal desperately with China and Hong Kong. And really, we should make any trade deal contingent upon the release of Jimmy Lai. He is an old, sick man. This would be a perfectly humanitarian and very easy thing for the PRC to do, to show that it is negotiating in good faith.
But is China making an example of Jimmy Lai? I mean, there have been other arrests, and people normally get around about 12 years for what he's done. He's already served 5, and he's got another 20. I mean, this seems incredibly harsh.
Well, yes. As you said in your introduction, Jimmy Lai was one of the biggest pro-democracy figures in Hong Kong. A remarkable man who was a self-made billionaire, who fled from the mainland to Hong Kong, built up his empire, and used his newspapers to call for democracy and freedom in Hong Kong. So he is everything that the Chinese Communist Party opposes, and they are ultimately seeking to punish him and send a very strong message to anybody else who would seek to speak up on behalf of human rights in Hong Kong, that they will be treated in a very harsh way by the authorities.
And can Keir Starmer ride both horses? I mean, can he secure Jimmy Lai's, early release and have a good relationship with Beijing?
Well, I think it's a common misconception that if you talk tough on certain issues with China, that you will damage your economic relationship. The United States, throughout the Biden years and now into the Trump years, has consistently taken a much tougher line on China policy than the UK. And yet it has continued to have bilateral economic dialogues. Our current strategy of not saying much about Jimmy Lai to not offend them is really just not very impressive. It doesn't make us seem like serious contenders in trade negotiations. And I think that we could be a lot bolder in setting out what we want and really pushing for meaningful concessions.
Is Keir Starmer being weak? Was he weak when he met with Xi, not to take that stance and to make it very clear that any deals were contingent on his release?
I think he was overly cautious. I think that's a fault that he has shared with other prime ministers. But yes, I think that much stronger action could have been taken to press for Jimmy Lai's release.
And what does the future of Hong Kong look like now? I mean, I visited Hong Kong once. I thought it was glorious. I thought it was a very strange place, but I really loved it. I was there for a few weeks. But what is it, before it was handed back, by the way, but before it's, what is it looking like now? What's going to happen with Hong Kong? Have we completely lost all touch with it now?
Sadly, the future of Hong Kong is an increasingly repressive place. A lot of the freedoms that made Hong Kong that vibrant, bustling hub have been trampled on by the national security law. So yes, it's a much diminished city from what it once was, not just politically, but also I think economically, because while Chinese companies still have a very strong presence in Hong Kong, international companies are shying away, and that does mean that Hong Kong loses, I think, some of the international flavour that made it what it was.
And is China, is she angry with this visa scheme? He's not going to want to see Hong Kongers leaving in their tens of thousands, is he?
Well, when the UK government first introduced the B&O scheme in 2021, in response to the national security law, the Chinese foreign ministry did criticise the move quite strongly and said that it was going to non-recognise the passport identity going forward. So further moves to expand the scheme, I'm sure that that she will not be particularly happy about it, but there is little that do on this. So we do commend the government for taking this step.
And what next for Jimmy Lai? Is he going to be continually held in solitary?
Well, yes, unfortunately, the days ahead do look quite dark for Jimmy. He will remain in solitary confinement. However, of course, his son Sebastian, his daughter Claire have been indefatigable on the world stage and advocating for their father's release. He has his supporters in human rights bodies and NGOs worldwide, and many political supporters as well, who are not going to give up the effort to free Jimmy Lai through whatever diplomatic means are still available.
And can his being held in solitary for going on, 5 years plus? I mean, that would seem to be unusually cruel as well. But can he have visitors? Can he take calls? Can he speak to? I mean, his son said he hadn't spoken to him for 5 years.
No, I think contact is very limited. His daughter Claire did manage to see him, but he is in solitary confinement 23 hours a day. He's allowed out for an hour to do exercise. He has very limited contact with the outside world. Again, this is about making an example of a very old and rather frail man.
Yeah. And the next we'll hear, will there be an appeal, do you think?
There will be an appeal. The chances of anything meaningful coming from that are obviously very, very low. But there will be this semblance of the old common law Hong Kong system in place so that China and Hong Kong can say that they are still abiding by the rule of law.
And how quickly can diplomatic moves be made, do you think? Should Keir Starmer be bashing the phones now to Xi?
Well, I would be very surprised if behind the scenes there weren't already some diplomatic overtures going into effect, especially from the UK government, because he is a British citizen. We certainly will be continuing to encourage Keir Starmer to make use of whatever diplomatic leverage is available to secure the release of Jimmy Lai. And I'd be very surprised if behind the scenes something was not already going to take effect.
Good to speak to you, Thomas. Thank you very much indeed. Thomas Benson there, Senior Policy Advisor at Hong Kong Watch. Quick break, back in a sec.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you. And just to let you know that coming up at the top of the hour is the fabulous John Boothman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. So he'll have quite a bit to say, I imagine, about the Labour Scottish leader. We'll find out. So he's going to be here going through the papers. And don't forget, at midnight, it's your chance to talk back and tell me if you think that... Is Keir Starmer reading the room? Has he got the ears? Is he listening to the people of this country, do you think? He says he has got a mandate for 5 years. So I thought we didn't vote for individuals, we voted for parties, but there you go. So we'll talk about that at midnight, so do give me a call at 0344 499 1000, and you can text me as well, put the word talk and your message to 87222. Well, UK criminals are now being deported from the US. Over 35, it's between, we don't know the exact number because I don't think we've been told the exact number, but it's 35 to 45. British criminals are set to be deported by the US administration as part of its ongoing mass deportations. The Department of Homeland Security has identified them as illegal aliens and has begun the process of returning them to Britain, calling them the worst of the worst. The list includes convicted criminals charged with a variety of crimes, including sexual assault and drug trafficking. The DHS is currently facing mounting controversy over its handling of immigration, as well as the recent killing of 2 US citizens at the hands of border agents, the so-called ICE agents. But who are these criminals? Did they commit the crimes in the US? And when 22 of them, I believe, we're hearing, have already arrived back in the UK, if there are open cases against them, what are we doing about it? I had so many questions about this. I don't blame America for getting rid of them. I wish we could get rid of ours just as quickly, but it doesn't appear that we can. Bill Bowring joins me now, barrister and Professor of Human Rights and International Law at Birkbeck College, University of London. Bill, it's good to see you again. Thank you for joining me.
Good evening, Petrie.
A lot of questions about these criminals. Do we know anything about them?
Well, I'm as puzzled as you are, actually, because the most comprehensive list I've seen is in the Daily Mail, where it is said of each of them that they have been convicted. For example, homicide, a robbery, assaulting police officers, drugs offences. So they've been convicted, according to the Americans. Now, if they've been convicted in Britain, one would expect them to be in prison.
Exactly.
Been convicted of murder. If they've been convicted of homicide in America, one would expect them to be in prison in America. So it is very strange indeed. I mean, we deport foreign nationals who commit crimes who are in British prisons, and we even release them early so they can be sent back. And that's very regular, and I think most countries do that. But this list saying that these people have been convicted of murder, for example, and then detained by ICE, that makes no sense to me at all.
No, because I was thinking about this as well, Bill, thinking that if that's that serious a charge, I didn't know whether they had committed these crimes in America, and in which case they have a very severe, reputation for their prison sentences, especially for homicide. And so that was where the confusion came. So are we just to take at face value that these are the worst of the worst? And if they were British with a conviction of homicide, then yes, maybe they could be out by now. It depends when they did it. But how did they get a visa to go to the US? I mean, I would have thought that would have stopped them from getting into the US in the first place. So there's an awful lot of questions here.
Well, the clear implication is that they've been convicted in the United States.
Then why aren't they in prison?
As we both say, if you are convicted for homicide, assaulting police officers, serious drugs offences, serious offences against children, then in America you certainly go to prison for a very long time. if this is simply deporting people who've been convicted and are in prison, which, as I say, we do, then that would explain why these people were on planes. And we even help people in certain circumstances to return. And if so many people have been put on a plane back to Britain, we have presumably accepted them on some basis or another.
Presumably, and also if they're only for example, if they're only halfway through a prison sentence, I know that we release early in some cases so they can continue their prison sentence in another country. If these are unpunished murderers and drug traffickers just being dropped off at Heathrow, then surely we should be arresting them or doing something with these hardened worst of the worst criminals when they arrive in the UK.
Well, of course, there is already a disappointing history of people like Vice President Vance making allegations against Britain on all kinds of topics. And this looks to me a bit like some kind of anti-British publicity, but publicity of a kind which, I mean, how many is it that they're meant to have sent back already?
22, apparently.
Yes, that's right. Well, that cannot be the case, except if they're people who are serving sentences and are being released early in order to send them back to Britain, which we would do in certain cases.
But how much earlier does it mean that they haven't served their time for the crime they committed in America? Again, I mean, there's just just to see a blanket, they've just returned, a lot of people thinking, oh well, that's fair cop, we want to deport criminals as well. But this doesn't make any, as you said, it really doesn't make any sense. And there are more British people being returned than, I think, was it Germany, Spain and France combined?
Well, again, yes, and this strikes me as being more J.D. Vancing, probably, if it's anything. And also the fact I ran a check just before coming on your show, and the only newspaper which has published any detail at all is indeed the Daily Mail, and I've got it here in front of me with the most complete list, all of whom are people said to have been convicted. So, and of course the news item which your editor sent me, there have been a few of those, but with much less detail even than the Daily Mail. So I think we need to wait until more serious newspapers get hold of this, if indeed there's something in it. At the moment, there's just a huge big question mark.
Yeah, and there seems, Bill, to be a distinct lack of curiosity about it as well. The fact that you and I are sitting here trying to puzzle this through, because it just doesn't add up. It is an odd thing. I mean, you've far more experience and skill than me, but the lack of curiosity on this, it just seems to be, right, well, these people are going back and that's the end of it. But
well,
I mean, if somebody committed murder in this country and we reduce their sentence to send them back home, I mean, we would want them to serve to at least be punished for that murder, right, first. And all these people look quite young.
Well, see, the phrase that attracted my attention is worst of the worst. And of course, if you want to say that British criminals are indeed the worst of the worst, I've seen that phrase before, by the way. It's not the first time.
No.
So I think we are awaiting clarification.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where I presume, like you said, we presume they were convicted of crimes in the US. We presume that they've spent prison time in the US and have just been dumped back in the UK. But that does lead me to ask the question, what are they being? Is there probation officers around them? Are there, as there would be if they were British criminals, or have they just been free to go about their criminal activity?
Well, that absolutely, in my view, from what I know of both the system here and in America, is impossible. And so there's the reports do not say where the conviction took place. I think the strong implication is, and it's even stronger than that in some of these reports, is its convictions in the United States. in which case, as we both agree, that also, if the conviction had been in the UK, they would never have been granted entry to the USA.
No. No, they wouldn't. No, unless they lied on their applications. But I would have thought they would have done a background check or something. But
Yeah.
the question is, isn't it, that if these are truly evil people, right? If they truly are the worst of the worst, and they've been sent back, dumped off at Heathrow or Gatwick, with what is the British government doing about protecting us from them in terms of probation if they've been released early, in terms of keeping an eye on them, in terms of checking the facts in these cases?
Well, I mean, yes, there you are. You've posted the pictures from the Daily Mail now.
I mean, they're a motley crew, it has to be said. But
they are a motley crew, said to have been convicted for really bad crimes. If they had been simply put on a plane and sent to the UK, I'm sure that they would have been sent straight back again.
yeah. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me at all. Do you think that we're going to get any clarification from, I don't know, our government? Or
I think there's
Home
got to
Office,
be a
or
response. I think there's got to be a response to the Daily Mail, and hopefully the Daily Mail itself will be puzzling over this, and will hopefully publish something a bit more with a bit more meat in it. Because this leaves every single question unanswered.
literally every single one. I don't think I've ever seen a news story more of a vacuum than this, I think, in my life. When I first saw it, and I spoke to Gabriella about it, and she was like, what angle? I said, I literally don't know, because I don't know what this actual story is. None of us do. Bill, when we find out, we'll get you back. Thank you. Bill Bowring, thank you very much indeed. Barrister and Professor of Human Rights and International Law at Birkbeck College at the University of London. It really is a puzzler. There are no answers to this at all. But I tell you what's coming up now, lots of answers to what's on the front page, and that is John Boothman with the papers.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and a good evening to you. This is Talk and it is Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock. And of course, in an hour's time at midnight, it's your chance to talk back. And that is the Talkback hour. And I want to talk to you about Keir Starmer. Can he really keep limping on? A lot of people are saying this is the end game for Keir Starmer. Is he deluded? Is he delusional? Does he listen to the country? Look at his poll rating, because he's saying that he has a mandate for the full 5 years and he's not going anywhere. He's not going to resign. Of course, it may not be up to him at the end of the day. But could we actually cope with another Prime Minister, another leadership contest, another period of time where nothing gets done because they're all concentrating on themselves and who's going to jostling for position and playing games and, you know, talking to each other behind each other's backs and all this internal bickering when the country's in a big enough hole that they should be fully with shovels in hand trying to get us out of it. I mean, seriously, enough now. Stop with this Westminster absolute... I wish I could swear. Can't. You know what I mean, though. And actually get on with the job of running the country. That's what we pay them for. We don't pay them to sit around and decide, you know, oh, I don't like him anymore, or do you think somebody else would be better? And Angela Rayner putting out videos of her at the hairdressers. It's like, come on, love. I don't care. I don't care what your hair looks like, really. Just pay your tax and get on with your job. Anyway, that's what we're going to be talking about at midnight. So do give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at national rate, but we do call you back. And here to discuss this and other stuff going on the front pages is John Boothman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. John, good to see you. We have to, of course, discuss Anas Sarwar right now, don't we?
Well, it was kind of slightly bizarre. I was off today, and about, I think it was 10 to 1. I saw something pop up in the computer, which was an invitation to a press conference that was to start less than 2 hours later in Glasgow, where Anas Sarwar was going to make an important announcement. It didn't take me long phoning around a couple of people to find out exactly what that announcement was going to be. And, you know, in some ways it came as a big surprise. Let me explain that first, because Anas Sarwar and Keir Starmer are really close pals. In fact, over the course of the past 5 years, Starmer was elected in April 2020 to the leadership of the Labour Party, and Sarwar was elected in February 21, 10 months later. These guys have developed a really close relationship. Some people in the Labour Party in Scotland have argued that they've been too close and it would have been better if there had been a distance between them. However, by and large, that relationship's continued. It was all great until, you know, right until the general election, where Labour had a fantastic victory in Scotland. They swept the boards, 37 seats they got, up from 1 at the previous general election, and then, like everything else and everywhere else, it all started going pear-shaped. Now, they've kept that good relationship by and large, the odd kind of crack in it, but nothing serious. And really, in reality, basically, Starmer's been a millstone, a ball and chain round about Anas Sarwar's neck and his legs, right, basically. And today, after all the carry-on last week, that put, as we say in Scotland, the tin lid in it, all the Mandelson stuff. Yeah. Over the weekend, Sarwar's reflected on it, and today he said that basically Starmer should resign. Now, the reason for that is Labour in Scotland what, 18 months ago, you would have said, were sailing into Bute House to take over the Scottish Government. They have been out of power in Scotland for 19 years.
Wow.
They are desperate to get back. They are desperate to take power from the SNP. They've been outlining a programme of stuff. Sarwar himself, domestically in Scotland, has been doing really, really well, exposing the difficulties that the SNP government have got into, most recently over the deaths at the Glasgow Super Hospital, for example.
Yeah.
But at each and every turn, he finds himself persistently undermined by the actions of the Starmer government. And we've discussed what those shortcomings have been many times before. So today, that was the reason. They're looking at their poll numbers. They are third in the polls. They're behind the SNP. They've got half the support of the SNP currently, and that's half the support that Labour got at the general election, 17% when they got 35%. Reform have overtaken them for second place in Scotland, and this is an Sarwar saying that unless Starmer goes, he has absolutely no chance of winning. He feels if he does nothing, that's another 5 years of the SNP. So as well then to try and do something, that's something calling his leader to resign. By and large, people in the Labour Party in Scotland think Starmer's going to go after the elections anyway, because there'll be a bad election probably in Scotland, a bad one in Wales, and a bad one in local council elections in England. So why not go now, right? Hope they can manage some kind of transition to a new person and give them a better chance of getting back in the game to win the Holyrood elections.
I mean, with friends like that, right? I mean, apparently, though, Anas did phone Keir Starmer before he did this and said, "Listen, mate, this is what I'm gonna say." But it's hard to imagine. I suppose Anas can just say, "Well, I'm putting party before friendships," which is a strong, I'm putting country before friendships, which is a strong message, I guess. But he's been sort of left out to dry, hasn't he? I mean, he looks a bit foolish now.
Well, let's see what way this plays. Now, that seems to be the prevailing opinion. That's certainly, from a Westminster point of view, what people are saying. I'm going to give it a few days yet, because it may be that this will resonate with the public in Scotland. The public in Scotland do not like Keir Starmer. His approval ratings in Scotland are as bad as they are south of the border, minus 46%, less popular than Donald Trump. Less popular than Nigel Farage. So maybe, Anas Sarwar could be onto something. I'm not saying that he is, but he could be. And there has been a tradition in Scotland, going back many, many years, that people in Scotland like the leaders of their parties in Scotland to sometimes take on the leaders of their own parties in London. The best example that people would recognise from recent years was Ruth Davidson and the Conservatives, who basically came out and said Boris Johnson was a bad lot, for example, and she did well as a result of that. So I think the jury's still out. I could be wrong. It's certainly not conventionally what other commentators are saying, but let's see how it plays. But look, Labour feel they were in a position in Scotland, if they do nothing, they were going to get absolutely stuffed. So they had to do something.
Has Anas now put a target on his back, though, from central government?
Well, look, to a certain extent, he's really not got much to lose, right? At the end of the day, if they come third and go backwards, if they come second on May the 7th, which is, 87 days away, then he's probably out in his ear anyway. He'll probably be a member of the Scottish Parliament. I don't imagine he'll want to stay there for the full term. He's a young man. He's got other things that he might do with his life. Look, it is the case that I'm sure he's made himself deeply unpopular with a whole load of Starmer loyalists, of which all of a sudden there seems to be plenty.
Yeah.
I mean, I spent the whole of the end of last week on the phone to loads and loads of people in the Labour Party, and there was nobody saying, after the Mandelson debacle, nobody in particular saying out loud that he should be staying. Most people were saying, you know, when, not if. Nobody was putting a timeline on it. You know, if you've seen what's happened tonight with all of the cabinet coming out in his favour,
it doesn't ring true, does it?
Well, I think my explanation of this, and it was explained at great length to me by a senior union leader on Saturday, is that none of the contenders are actually ready to throw their hats in the ring. Some of the papers have got a bit of this tomorrow. Angela Rayner is waiting on that HMRC investigation into the carry-on over her £800,000 second home in the South Coast.
She's unelectable at the moment.
Wes Streeton is trying at the moment, just as we speak, to actually counter some of the suggestions that he was too close to Mandelson, and there's clearly, people think, some issues with his partner, who used to, I think, work for Mandelson. Ed Miliband isn't universally popular with, for example, a lot of the trade unions, the GMB and Unite, to the bigger unions over his net zero position. Shabana Mahmood, I mean, to be honest, I'm not sure how big a base outside the House of Commons, no matter how competent she would appear, that she's actually got. So I think at the end of the day, so far, Starmer has benefited from that kind of confusion, from the fact that either people ain't ready or that people don't think the people who would want to be leaders have actually outlined any direction of travel, for example, that would be any different from Keir Starmer. You know, there's clearly an issue in the House of Commons where the MPs, I think, are probably slightly to the left or a bit to the left of Starmer. They've already revolted, for example, over things like welfare reform, which was supposed to save, you know, Starmer's government a lot of money to put into other areas. And I'm not sure that the MPs, for example, are ready to be led by anybody in particular. So maybe for them at the moment, Starmer's, what is it, the least worst option of anything that can come forward. You know, that's without even talking about a left-right dimension of any of this. You would imagine the lefts and the centrists won't like Miliband and Rayner. Miliband and Rayner's supporters won't like Wes Streeton or Shabana Mahmood. So there's nobody who would seem so far to be able to bring the whole lot of them together and set a direction of travel, which has been the big criticism of Starmer, to take the Labour Party and the Labour government forward.
I mean, that can't feel very good, can it? Only being there because you're the least worst option at the moment.
Well, it's a kind of feature of politics, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, we shouldn't really forget that, you know, Keir Starmer's the Prime Minister. He's got this huge majority in the House of Commons, but, you know, it was only, what, 35% of the vote or something that he actually got. You know, any of the conversations that we have about any parties in the election seem to be, you know, that's kind of where things are at. It's a sort of plague in all your houses. So we'll go for that person over there. You know, Reform's doing very well, for example, in the polls, but they're not really particularly polling right across the UK any more than about 30% of the vote.
Yeah.
And the way our electoral system works, certainly at a UK level, means that you can win a third of the vote and more than 50% of the seats.
Yeah. It is ridiculous, isn't it, when you think of the, you know, Keir Starmer still going on about this overwhelming mandate, and you go, really, mate? Have you seen the numbers? But the question about Keir Starmer's survival, I mean, they're being tested in what, 2 weeks' time with a by-election.
Well, Gordon and Dent, I mean, you know, at the moment you've seen, you know, a great procession of people on the news all night, government ministers, backbenchers coming out and saying the Prime Minister's here. In terms of their message, it's kind of the same old well-worn thing that we've heard before that isn't very popular, which is, you know, we said it would take 2 terms to get things sorted, and we think that by the end of the year, ordinary people will be able to see some progress. You know, I think people feel that they want a bit more hope than that. They want a bit more optimism than that. They want to see, as you said yourself earlier, a bit more delivery rather than these, not very warm words. Starmer, in fact, himself, you'll remember, not long after he elected, said things would get worse before they would get better. So I don't think that's a particularly, you know, good selling point in terms of where you want to go. But that thing, right, about you're kind of not really very sure what he stands for. Yeah. He's changed his mind so many times, so many misjudgments and mistakes, and that's partly in a Star Wars point. You know, there's all these misjudgments, mistakes, missteps. It's just a mess.
And Morgan McSweeney, of course, has gone.
Well, we haven't even mentioned Morgan McSweeney, nor Tim Allen, the director of communications.
He must be feeling very lonely at the moment, Keir Starmer, because it was interesting. Chris Patton was saying earlier that because he came into politics late in life, and he's not very good at politics, that he doesn't have a cohort of people around him. So that's why McSweeney and Allen were so important to him, because he hasn't had time to sort of build a political, you know, base, if you like. I thought that was a very interesting point.
Look, it's an entire, I mean, you know, for anybody who watches any of the inside doings of politics, the machinery behind politics, the way politics works, you know, it takes a long time to be able to build up a cohort of loyal supporters. I can remember, for example, Gordon Brown was an amazing example of it. Gordon Brown was forever sending notes to the people in the back benches who, if somebody, you know, I call them, a lot of the backbenchers, sometimes the dispossessed or never possessed people who either have been ministers or will never be ministers. Yeah. Gordon Brown was forever courting people. He would write them a note. What a great speech you made last Tuesday. You know, Gordon, and he kept contact with people. He worked the tea rooms as MPs traditionally do. Starmer doesn't know any of that stuff. No. Starmer's alien to it. It's not. Now, you could argue on the one hand that's a good thing for a politician. On the other hand, if it means that, you know, when you look behind you, there's not that many people there, and if they are there, they're only there for tactical reasons.
And they've got a knife in their
hands. Then, you know, you place yourself in a difficult position. And Chris Patton's right. I think he lacks a lot of those political skills that traditionally you would associate with people. You've got to keep your people on side. Yeah. And I think what you've seen today is, he's kept people on side, but for all the wrong reasons. It's just they're waiting for the next thing to happen, which, look, the next bit of the crisis, as you say, might be in a fortnight's time if Reform or the Greens win in the by-election in Denton and Gorton near Manchester.
Absolutely. I mean, these crises keep coming, and a lot of them are his own making, which if he loses Gorton Denton as well, Andy Burnham may have won that, so that's another punch in his own face. Right, we've got to take a quick break, but we will be back in just a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good evening to you. This is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you, and with me is the fabulous John Boothman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. Let's have a look at your sister paper now, The Times. PM comes out fighting as cabinet falls in line, and Streeting accused of bottling a bid to oust the leader.
Yeah, look, the first bit we've seen, we've played over some of that already. I'm quite interested in this story about Streeting bottling it. Look, he's not the only person who is out there looking as if they might want to take a run at this. You know, nobody is brave enough and big enough and bold enough and ugly enough to actually say it, though. There's a whole series of things happening behind the scenes, you know, whether it be Angela Rayner and allegedly a website which appears in another paper, or, you know, in this case, Starmer. But, you know, it's not exactly a secret that Streeting. It's not exactly a secret that Wes Streeting wants to be the next guy in number 10. Tonight, one of the things that he has done is publish a series of emails, messages between him and Peter Mandelson to somehow defuse any suggestion that he was too close to Mandelson, but some of them don't look particularly savoury, suggesting that there's no economic growth agenda in number 10, for example. So, you know, all of this is still part of the big build-up, you know, for the time when, you know, there is a firing gun actually is started. You know, whenever Starmer really, I think, has to go.
But it's all timing, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
They can't, you know, with Anas Sawa saying that he should resign, presumably immediately, that would expose the potential new leader to a whole lot of things that like the elections coming up in May, that they don't want to take that on. They want Starmer to be the person holding the baby at that time, and so it's timing as well, isn't it? It's not just a case of like, I'm just going to take the leadership job, because it needs to be the right time to take that job.
Look, so much about politics, that this is going to sound a really strange thing to say, but so much about politics is about timing and luck. Timing and luck are more important in politics than anybody ever thinks. You can do all the planning that you like, you can get all the cash behind you that you like and everything else, but it's about timing and luck for a great deal of the time, and this is a good example of it. I think one of the reasons I think that we find ourselves in this situation is that they're all looking over their shoulder at each other. Nobody wants to be the person that wields the knife. Andy Burnham, for example, you know, not very long ago looked as if he was trying to wield the knife, and he hasn't even got anywhere yet near the starting block. You know, people are saying today that, you know, Anas Sarwar's probably, you know, shot himself in the foot. I think we'll wait and see. And here we've got, you know, all sorts of accusations, for example, being made about Streeting. And as we know, as I said, Angela Rayner is kind of, she's kind of stripping off her tracksuit and running up and down the touchline as well, being prepared to make
rushing
a bid.
HMRC, get on with it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's honestly, they're all there, aren't they? But another story there's a couple of royal stories there. First of all, the Prince of Wales, William, met the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia as on the behest of the government. So this is one of those visits that William has been asked to make, and people keep saying these two future kings together, but it looks like William doesn't look comfortable, I'm going to say.
No, I mean, you have to remember that the context of all of this is that he's making exactly the sort of visit that his Uncle Andrew might have made in the past. that got him into a great deal of trouble. Now, this particular story about Andrew, where the King and William seem to be weighing in against Andrew, I think is a big story and a bit of a watershed for the royal family.
Yeah.
You know, they've taken away Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Is that what we're supposed to call him these days?
Andy.
They've taken away his home, they've taken away his titles,
Yeah.
they've taken away his status. And now what happens, and this is why I think it's a bit of a watershed, is that the king himself has expressed profound concerns about Andrew's involvement with Jeffrey Epstein, not only in terms of some of the unsavoury and worse things that happened with women, but also, and this is where it's relevant to the story of William and Mohammed bin Salman, that when he was away on trade missions, he was passing confidential information to Jeffrey Epstein. Shades, of course, of Lord Mandelson last week.
Yeah. I mean, this is the Epstein files. They're just a gift that keep on giving, aren't they? And underneath that what I think looks quite an awkward photograph for William. Palace to support police's Andrew inquiry. Is this a kind of non-statement? Because how much would they be able to assist in any inquiry? I mean, the King said, look, it's for Andrew to answer these questions, but of course, if we can help, we will. I just wonder what that actually means in practice.
Well, difficult to say what it means, but you might imagine it might have something to do with communications, to do with letters, to do with anything that would have gone through, you know, the private offices of and access, for example, to individuals. I mean, I think the royal family is becoming hugely sensitive about this. I mean, in the past, it's the kind of thing that, you know, dare I say, has been skated over, covered up, things of that sort. But these allegations are just so serious that the royal family's got its own reputation to keep. I mean, when have you heard, and I think this is right, the second time in the last few days that the King was heckled.
I know.
He was carrying out public engagements. Now, these are things that are, I think, virtually unheard of. And, you know, I have to say it's a very big different approach to any of these things that's been adopted by the King and Prince William in relation to Andrew than the Queen would have adopted. So all of this, I mean, hugely interesting, but I think, you know, a big watershed moment that the King would say that they're prepared to cooperate with the police in any inquiry they might be having.
I mean, they've got to try and put as much distance, haven't they, between themselves and Andrew, and maybe it's too late. You know, there are people. The heckler today was saying, you know, when did you know about Andrew and his relationship? I mean, again, I have to say that Andrew has denied all allegations of any wrongdoing, and just being in the Epstein files doesn't make you, you know, instantly guilty of something. But it stinks, doesn't it? It just stinks. And then, as you say, on top of that, the revelations that a royal is going against the Crown and the government in order to send secrets to his pal. That's pretty deep.
You know, and there's a criminal investigation into Lord Mandelson.
Yeah.
The whole thing, absolutely incredible. Who would ever have thought? I mean, one of the things I'm terribly struck by is that, you know, here we've got a situation where an ex-senior government minister, one of the country's most senior diplomats, I suppose, given he was UK ambassador to the United States, and obviously, you know, someone high up in line to the throne, have ended up being absolutely disgraced. And yet, when I look at what's happening in America, where most of these shenanigans, right, where things have taken place, there is one woman who's in jail for it, Epstein, of course, is no longer with us, and maybe there will be more revelations about that in the coming months. But you know, that having been said, no politician, no senior anything, right, seems to have taken the rap for any of
Todd Blanche said he's looked through the files, all 9 million of them, whatever many they are, and there's nothing to answer for. I mean, I find that absolutely extraordinary. I mean, even just some of the things that we're talking about here, that, you know, we are at least talking about it in America. The media there seems to just not be really discussing it.
Yeah, and we've done so, and something's been done about it. Albeit it's taken a long time, and again, you know, you can't, we can't leave this story at all without thinking about, you know, the women who've been involved. Many women have been involved, and they've been, you know, Virginia Giuffre's no longer with us, but these women have been campaigning and not listened to for many years.
And they are extraordinary. I watched a documentary on Epstein, I think yesterday, called Filthy Rich. And I've seen a couple of documentaries, but this one was very interesting because it did talk to some of the women who were girls at the time of their abuse, and how long it's taken them to be listened to, and you know, we can't mention it without mentioning Donald Trump as well. I mean, he's apparently named more often in the Epstein files than Harry Potter is named in the Harry Potter books. You know, and again, just being named in the Epstein files for legal purposes doesn't make you guilty of anything, but at least it at the very least could make you a witness to something. So why Congress isn't pushing for Donald Trump and the others who clearly were around Epstein at the time to go to Congress and answer questions as just witnesses, you know, is beyond me.
But even that process that you've described, which sounds so simple and so easy, go to Congress and lead some kind of testimony, that itself is now causing some problems. Bill Clinton says he'll go in front of a congressional committee to testify about what he knows, except for the fact that the Republican majority in the committee appears to want it to be held in private, and not in public.
But why? I mean, it should be in public. This is the biggest paedophile sex ring, trafficking ring in history, probably, and you know, they're trying to skirt it. And Virginia Giuffre was not Virginia Giuffre, sorry, Ghislaine Maxwell was in front of it today, refused to speak, and is now asking for a pardon.
That's right, pleaded the Fifth Amendment.
Yeah. How pointless is that? Absolutely ridiculous. Shouldn't be allowed in a congressional meeting. Let's take a quick break, John. We'll be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good evening. This is Talk and it's Petrie, and with me is John Boothman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. We're going through the newspapers for tomorrow. I mean, I know we've talked a lot about this Wes Streeting thing, but I just have to read this because this made me laugh. This is the Telegraph. It said, Starmer clings on after briefing war, with insiders saying, we know who's behind this. His name rhymes with Les Wheating.
I thought that was very odd to have that line so high up in the story.
I thought it was very funny, though. It was very good.
I think, you know, the one bit of this story that captured my attention coming from Scotland was it's suggesting that somehow or other that there might have been some collusion between Wes Streeting and Anas Sarwar.
Yeah.
And I have to say I'm not terribly sure about that. I'm not sure that a lot of the Westminster commentators get how serious the election in Scotland is for Scottish Labour.
Yeah.
I suspect there will be more of this to come because we've yet to hear the leader of Labour in Wales, Eluned Morgan, who's the First Minister. In Wales, Labour are doing even worse in Wales than they are in Scotland. They're down to about 12% in the polls. Wales has been dominated by Labour since time immemorial.
Yeah.
And they are third in Wales behind Plaid Cymru, who are polling about 30-odd%, and Reform just behind them. So I just think, you know, the Westminster correspondents are looking at all this through a great Westminster bubble.
Yeah, they always do.
Really understand and who's standing against who and jockeying for position and who's involved in which conspiracy with who else, except for the fact that they don't seem to recognise that, you know, there's pretty big stakes, you know, whether in Wales or in Scotland, for the two leaders of the Labour Party.
Yeah.
And certainly in the case of Scotland, that is why Anas Sarwar is doing what he's doing. He's not doing it in order somehow or other that the great
To help Wes Streeting.
is to help Wes Streeting. I mean, you know, I certainly have spoken to a whole number of people in the Labour Party in Scotland, some quite prominent people in the last few days, who think from their point of view that actually Angela Rayner might be a better bet to be the leader of the Labour Party going forward, because she's more in tune with ordinary working people in their view. She's more authentic as a character, and they think she's more electable. So I looked more than slightly askance at that section in the article in the Telegraph, suggesting that, you know, that behind the scenes there was a great big plot with Anas Sarwar and Wes Streeting, you know, so that they could get Streeting elected. Not sure about that.
No, I'm with you on that. It's always more simple than that, isn't it? Let's have a look at the FT. There's one story here that I think is quite interesting, although I can't read the body of it because it's so blurred. The FT often is when they print out. It says, US Embassy denies top executives visas over petty offences going back to the 1970s. I can't help but think this is a really dumb idea for America.
America's got pretty strict rules, and always has had pretty strict rules about who comes in and who comes out, who gets green cards, who doesn't. You know, all that stuff. Right, it's a great legacy from the Joe McCarthy days. Are you or have you ever been, you know, a member of the Communist Party? Stuff. I mean, they slightly bizarrely ask people if they are or have ever been a terrorist, and I can't imagine that anybody would say yes, I have.
Well, not a very smart terrorist if you tick yes, are you really?
Well, indeed, and I think some of this harks back to that as well. I think if people have in any shape or form, in any time in their past, had any kind of criminal offence, and that could include things like drunk driving, for example, I think there are special arrangements that have to be made for people to even get visas. I think the process is quite a tough process by and large. But secondly, it's worth saying that I suspect, given the current bent of the Republican administration and its attitude towards immigration, that these kind of regulations will be much tighter now, or certainly be much more adhered to now than they've been before.
But it just seems to be, again, if it's a really petty offence going back to the 1970s, that there may be quite a few executives who are running companies in the US or are thinking about running companies in the US, and this is going to put them off.
Yeah,
I mean, why would you bother? You'd just go, well, stuff it then, I won't build my factory there.
But to a certain extent, given again the nature of the Republican administration, that might suit them fine. Thank you very much. It's all about homegrown talent. It's all about building factories in the States and everything else.
Except they're not building them.
And using their own people.
Yeah. Let's go to the Daily Mail. King's profound concern over Andrew claims as palace ready to work with police. I mean, the poor king there, it's a shocking picture. He looks like he's close to tears. I'm sure that isn't what was going on. But so we know that he's had to make that difficult choice. I think he's already made it, that he's got to cut Andrew adrift. And the other story is, again, ministers finally back Starmer. Cabinet bounced into giving PM a stay of execution. But again, the language of that is this stay, isn't it? It's like he won't be staying forever. He won't see through the 5 years.
Yeah, look, it's the when and not if again.
Yeah.
I mean, again, this is a funny story insofar as, if you're a member of the cabinet or a government minister, unless you want to be out in your ear by first thing tomorrow morning, you can do nothing but, say that you're sticking with the Prime Minister. I spoke to a government minister earlier this evening, a junior minister, and I certainly know that individual's point of view, but I'd certainly, would, given the Scottish elections coming up, right? But, I would not be surprised to see a statement being issued on behalf of that particular individual saying that the Prime Minister's doing a fine and wonderful job and should forever keep in position in his post, right? I mean, they're
so two-faced. They're all just looking after themselves. It's ridiculous. Let's quickly move to the Sun again. King will help cops on Andy. I mean, as you said, that's a pretty significant thing for him to say, and also constitutionally, I checked earlier on, there's the law applies to Andrew as it does to everybody else.
Absolutely.
So if there's anything to answer for, he'll be answering for it. That'll be interesting to see what happens if that does come to pass. If we see a former prince in court, that would be a very interesting crisis, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be. But the other thing, of course, is, and we've seen these demands over the weekend, is that he has been asked, and certainly I heard one of the women talking about this over the weekend, that they want Andrew Mountbatten, Windsor, that's what he's called, to go to the United States and actually testify in front of a congressional committee as well.
He's already said no, hasn't he?
Well, again, he's not entitled to go, but, it begs lots and lots of questions, the fact that he's not willing to.
Yeah. Even, like I said, even just as a witness to, you might have seen some stuff or heard some stuff about Epstein, and we have a right to know what that is. It's not going away, right? As much as Donald Trump wants it to go away, and I'm sure others want it to go away, I think the more that there is a refusal to look into this, the more that we're shouting for it to be looked into. And finally, for this quarter anyway, Daily Express, resign now. PM on brink as calls to go mount. I don't think they are mounting, are they? They've ceased to mount at this stage.
Well, look, this story, as you say, this story's not going away. We'll be back here again in a couple of weeks. One of the arguments that we haven't actually spoken about, one of the things that certainly I saw some vox pops in this earlier on, and I've heard others actually talking about it, is that, you know, I think we've had, is it 6 or 7 prime ministers in 10 years?
Yeah.
And one of the arguments that's been deployed in order to shore up the prime minister is this argument that says, well, one, that Labour shouldn't be like the Tories, changing, you know, the prime minister as if you're changing your coat to cope with the weather. But the other thing is that, you know, we need, you know, somebody to be in place for a longer period of time to actually put their stamp on it, you know, to take the country forward. You know, all of that for me is negated by this idea, as we've talked about before, that Starmer really hasn't set out a proper direction of travel. He just seems to kind of muddle through, takes tactical decisions all the time, is quite happy to change them, and you're kind of just not really that very sure what he stands for.
No, exactly that, and that has always been his downfall. Like Chris Patton said, he's just not very good at politics. Quick break, John. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock. And with me is John Boothman, who's a political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. John, the other papers, the Mirror again, King will help police, the Daily Star even going with that story, King will help police, Chaz and Wills. Love the respect. Deeply and profoundly concerned. And then the Metro going on, my first loyalty is to country, that is the Scottish Labour leader, Anas Sarwar there, and mercy of cabinet keeps Starmer in power on the eye. So they're all agreed on the story, and that is the story, isn't it? So I thought we'd go to some of your picks, if you don't mind. I quite like this one. The Times, 3 cups of tea or coffee lowers the risk of dementia by almost a fifth.
This is a study by Harvard University, basically saying that it's because of the caffeine in the tea or the coffee that it helps to protect the brain. Now, it goes on to say that you shouldn't have any more than 3 cups of tea or coffee.
What?
That's a day. But, you know, the researchers looked, I think, at 131,000 people in the US and basically had tracked them over a period of 4 decades. It's a really interesting story. It says, well, compared with people who consumed virtually no caffeine, people who drank between 1 and 5 cups of caffeinated coffee had about 20% less dementia risk.
See,
those
I
who
mean,
drank at least 1 cup of caffeinated tea had about 15% less risk.
How much tea or coffee do you drink a day?
More than that.
Yeah, me too. Coffee, anyway. I can't function in the morning without coffee. I have to have at least 2 cups of coffee, and then my brain starts to slowly wake up. I don't need an excuse to drink my coffee. It is the best drink of the day, but I'm glad to know, until next week when they tell us that it's dangerous, that scientists have said this is a good idea.
Well, again, you know, this is where these things become interesting. Caffeine of any description, either in tea or coffee, if you've got prostate problems, is a big issue.
Yeah, that's true.
So it can cause you problems in one area of your body, but for something else might be quite beneficial. I suppose that must apply to quite a lot of things. But I find this, I jumped out at that story. I liked it.
Yeah, I like anything that backs up my habits is a good story in my view. I wonder if that also includes caffeinated fizzy drinks like Red Bull.
Yeah,
and things
I would
like that.
imagine. Well, I don't know. It's difficult. I don't know. I just think the story makes people happy.
Yeah, it is a good story. This is another nice, happy story. A beaver blind date. Animals given freedom to repopulate the Cornish rivers.
Look, this is something, again, not new to me in Scotland, right? You know, what's now happening is that what's been happening in Scotland for a past number of years is now starting to happen in England. By 2030, I think at the moment in Scotland there's about 2,000 beavers reintroduced over the past few years. They're in 400 different, they've got 400 different wee bases around the country. Of course, they build dams, they help to protect the environment. By their introduction, it's meant that other species of animals start to populate the place. So I think by and large it's a very good thing. I think they were hunted to extinction or something about 400 years ago. So all of that stuff that's been happening in Scotland is now happening south of the border. It's happened already in Dorset, and now they're extending it to Cornwall. Now, I'm not a great kind of nature person, but a lot of these projects are absolutely fascinating. One of the great things that's happened in Scotland, for example, over the past few years has been the reintroduction of sea eagles, for example, around the coasts. It causes some problems for farmers. They sometimes swoop down and take away, you know, people's lambs and stuff. But you know, by and large, it's something that people have welcomed and it's been appreciated. And as long as these things are done in cooperation with local farmers and local landowners, you can actually make them work. And they in themselves, it's a good thing to do, but it has a bigger benefit for the environment. So
yeah, I'm remembering a story, I think it was either last year or the year before, where a council somewhere in the country was meant to fix some waterways, and they said it was going to be too expensive. It was expensive, and these kept flooding and flooding and flooding. And eventually a family of beavers did it.
Sure.
And it cost nothing. And it stopped this particular waterway from flooding and purified the water. So they do a better job. Well, it's not difficult, but a better job than most councils do. And like you said, if they were there they did a good job, right? Especially in the wetlands, keeping them flowing properly. And then it's such a tragedy that we let them be hunted to extinction.
No, no, look, it's fantastic. I mean, for many years there's been, this is going to sound like a strange story, but in Tayside, and again, I don't know that anybody's quite sure how this happened, there's been, I don't know what the collective noun for beavers is, but I think there were feral beavers in Tayside, that beavers were released into the wild and they just populated the place, but that's all been sorted now, and as I say, there's 400 different territories in Scotland where these things exist. One of my, I was talking about sea eagles a minute ago. One of the stories I remember doing a couple of years ago was about the former SNP Westminster leader Ian Blackford, who had a house in Skye, and he kept, well, getting into a bit of trouble with a variety of animals. Sea eagles attacked his sheep, and which was pretty bad. And the other story I remember, he phoned me one morning in great distress that wild mink had managed to get into his hen house and slaughtered the hens. So
yeah, the wildlife. I mean, by the way, it's a colony of beavers.
Is it?
It's a colony. I mean, the problem that I have with wildlife in my garden, honestly, squirrels that steal light bulbs, and foxes that just to taunt me and my dogs constantly.
Interesting.
In West London.
Yeah, well, we've got, the odd squirrel out the back, but I think that's about the size of it.
Oh, God. The ones, honestly, they stripped all the wire of my light bulbs out in the garden, of all the bulbs. Don't know why. They obviously thought they were food, but it's cost me a lot of money, so I'm not very happy with the squirrels. Let's have a look at, talking of wild creatures, potentially, Bad Bunny. And not the kind of Bad Bunny that farmers might complain about, but the artist.
Well, look, America being America, Bad Bunny, who is the biggest streamed, took over as I think the biggest streamed artist on social media from Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Puerto Rican singer. 10 years ago, I think he was packing messages in message bags in supermarkets, and is now a gigantic superstar.
Just won the Grammy for the best album, and it's the first Spanish album to ever. I mean, he's a big deal, right?
Played at halftime at the Super Bowl. He managed to have a whole series of guests, Lady Gaga, Ricky Martin, a whole series of people as part of what looked like a quite amazing show.
Yeah.
But of course, can't do anything without Donald Trump getting his oar in. Donald Trump, what was it? I think he said it was the
worst halftime show in the history of the world, or something.
Basically on the basis that Bad Bunny's denounced ICE and the number of immigration arrests. I mean, it looked like a pretty impressive show to me when I watched it.
Yeah, it's the most watched halftime show ever. And also Donald Trump was complaining that nobody could understand a word he said, except for the fact there are 60 million Spanish speakers in America.
Nobody could understand the word they said except Spanish people, but there you go.
Yeah, and also it was music, and it was a brilliant show, as you said. I mean, who cares? And the alternative Turning Point halftime show was absolutely awful. Everybody's been taking the mick out of that, but you can't please all the people all of the time, and it doesn't seem like you can please Donald Trump any of the time if you have a foreign accent. Anyway, John Boothman, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much indeed. John Boothman there, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. Right, stay where you are, because it's over to you next.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning. This is your Talkback hour, and that's exactly what I want you to do. This full hour has been stripped of guests. It's got nothing going on here, just you and me. So this is your opportunity to talk back. And I hope you do, because my voice is slightly fading. So I'm going to need you to give me a call and use your voice, which hopefully is a little bit stronger than mine at the moment. What we're going to be talking about this morning, it's the story, right? It is that thing that is just the elephant in the room, and that is Keir Starmer's ego. I think he says that he has a full mandate from the country. He has got no intention of stepping down. He's here. He's not going to step down. He's going to be here for the full term. He's got the full mandate, and I just don't know. Has he really still got a mandate? But the other side of this, and it is a serious question, is are we better to stick with Keir Starmer? I know. Bear with me while I explain this, because I know that you know that I've said right from day dot, actually, that I did not believe that he would see the full 5-year term. Right? I didn't expect it to be kind of this quick a decline, but I didn't think, and it's on record that I said. And there were lots of political commentators who said, no, he's got he's got all the backing and blah, blah, blah. Well, 18 months later, and it's looking closer to becoming the truth than even I imagined it would. I thought he'd be gone by year 3 kind of thing. So can we cope with yet another leadership challenge, another prime minister, another reset? And all the while, of course, that there are all this infighting and bitching going on and jostling for position. They're not working for us. They're not doing what we pay them to do. They forget they are civil servants. They are there to serve the country. They are being paid to serve us. And at the moment, all they're doing, it appears, of all persuasions, is serving themselves. And who should be the next leader? Should it be Westminster or Andy Burnham? What about Angela Rayner? She's working class, It's so patronising. I can't bear that line. She's done well for a working class northern lass. It's like, well, why shouldn't she? It's so patronising. It absolutely drives me nuts. Anyway, all of this going on, all of this, and nothing is making our lives better, it seems. It seems that everything is just crashing and burning, and nothing is getting better. In fact, things are getting worse. And we talked last week about how, these shortening NHS waiting times have got as much to do with kicking people off the waiting list as it has for them getting through the waiting list quickly and getting people treated. So we know that they're not doing what we're paying them to do, and the frustration of that, excuse me, is extraordinary. It just winds me up, because they are just so interested in themselves, they're self-serving, and they've forgotten why they're there. So that's what frustrates me, is another leadership challenge, another disruption of another prime minister, another reset, another load of blah blah. Things will be different now. So is it better that Keir Starmer stays where he is? I never thought I'd ask that question, but actually the closer it gets to him being ousted, the more I'm thinking, well, it's just more disruption. It's just more nonsense. And actually, when Anna Sawar, the Scottish Labour leader, called for Starmer to step down, the yield level went up, because they're worried, that's the interest rate on borrowing. And then when all the ministers came out and supported Keir Starmer, it went back down again. So there is concern that if you get rid of Keir Starmer, you're going to have more borrowing, more spending, and that Labour will somehow run out of control. So the markets don't like the idea of Keir Starmer leaving either. They're thinking he's at least keeping control on the levels of borrowing that this country has got itself into trouble over in the past. So there's a question either side of this. I think Keir Starmer is a woeful Prime Minister. I mean, he just doesn't understand politics. He doesn't have any friends in politics, it seems. Morgan McSweeney, his little buddy, has now had to leave, and then Tim Allen has now had to go. And, he's probably cutting quite a lonely figure. He doesn't do politics. He doesn't know politics. He doesn't understand politics, the workings of politics. I think he's woeful. But in some regards, is it better the devil you know than to get somebody else in who we don't know? I mean, at least we know that Keir Starmer's a bit inept. But who next? And how destabilising might that be? And at the moment, he's clearly only being kept on because he's the least worst option, which is also pretty sick-making, isn't it? Anyway, give me a call. What do you really think about this? Get down to the nuts and bolts of it like I just did. It's like, this is so boring and so annoying that they keep doing this. And meanwhile, the country's at a standstill. 03444 991 1000. Calls are charged at national rate, but we do call you straight back. And you can text as well. Put the word talk and your message to 87222. Let's get into your calls now. And Brian has called from Northern Ireland with that lovely accent. Hello, Brian. How are you?
Hello there. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. What do you? You've had enough problems in Northern Ireland, haven't you, with politicians?
Yeah, all sorted out by Tony Blair.
Yeah, of course.
Another Labour tube. Anyway, I look at this government like a Victorian. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, I'm listening.
Yep.
Like a Victorian what?
A Victorian balloon seller, and he has in his hand a lot of strings, holding on to brightly coloured balloons filled with hot air.
Yeah.
And what we need really is somebody to come along with a pair of scissors and release them all into the wild blue beyond, because there isn't anybody on the Labour front bench that is capable of running a government.
I know, and there's such a lack of talent, isn't there? It really is. It really is extraordinary. All the big beasts, those that we used to turn to, even just 20 years ago, they've all gone. There doesn't seem to be any experience. There doesn't seem to be anything.
Basically, they're in politics for the money. Now, you're talking about the civil service there. I was a civil servant in Northern Ireland during the Troubles for 35 years. I served in both the military and 30 years in the prison service, Northern Ireland Prison Service. I had my life almost taken on 2 occasions. But some of the carry-on that Keir Starmer has been involved in, if I had have done that under the civil service code, I'd be in jail today.
I mean, we've got to remember, if you think back as well, all the freebies that Keir Starmer got right at the beginning. I mean, there's been so much that we forget all of that as well. And that would be against your civil service code.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the National Health Service. I've just left the Ulster Hospital in Dundonald, where I've left my wife again for the 4th time in just under 3 months. My wife was a district nurse. My daughter's a nurse in the Ulster Hospital in Dundonald. My son's a psychiatric ward manager.
Wow.
And my wife will sit for 22 hours in the Ulster Hospital on a red alert. She's the top priority, and she'll be there for at least 22 hours before she's seen by a doctor. But Keir Starmer has told us, and West Streeting has told us, that they have cured the National Health Service.
Yeah.
Not in Northern Ireland, they haven't.
Well, nor here. And this is the other thing, Brian, that frustrates me beyond belief, is they treat us like we're a bunch of children or idiots or idiot children. Just, we can handle the truth, right? Just be honest. Just to stop telling us you've fixed something when it's absolutely clear that you haven't. I'm tired of it, aren't you? You tired of all the BS that goes on?
The health service at the moment now, as I say, my wife, son and daughter were both involved in the health service here in Northern Ireland. And the problem with the health service is it's management heavy and nursing staff light.
Yeah, it always has been. There's enough clipboard Johnnies to stand by every bed in the NHS.
My daughter was on duty last night in a premature baby ward. She gave up orthopedic surgery because it was getting too heavy for her. She's 25 years in the job. But she was on duty last night in a ward. She'd have had 6 nurses on it, a full complement of premature babies, and there were 4 of them doing the job of 6 nurses.
Wow.
With very, very dangerously ill children, and they had to just buck their ideas up and get on with it. That's all there is about it. There was nobody coming to help them.
Yeah,
they had to get on with it and do it.
This is the frustration that I was talking about, is the disruption of another leadership contest, you know, of them all circling round. They're not doing the job.
There's not one of them could run a Sunday school picnic. And that's the honest truth.
Well, I wouldn't trust any of them to carry my shopping across the street, that's for sure.
Well, we have our problems here in Northern Ireland. We have a lot of terrorists running our government over here, put in by Tony Blair. I locked half of them up. In my day, I locked half of them up, and I'm supposed to respect those people.
I know.
Those people murdered my brother and tried to murder me. Why would I respect them?
And that is a very difficult pill to swallow, isn't it, when you're talking about Sinn Féin? Yeah, and how that was supposed to solve anything, I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, but he then turns around and says that the far right, are trying to undermine this country. There's only one person trying to undermine this country. It's Keir Starmer. Let's be honest about it.
I don't know if he's trying to, but he's certainly achieving it.
Oh, of course he's achieved it. Chagos is the perfect example, and giving Gibraltar to Spain on a plate for next to nothing. What's next? The Falkland Islands?
Ooh, yeah.
Northern Ireland's been given away. We belong to Europe now. It's finished. You know, and I fought for 5 years in the army and gave 30 years of my life to the prison service
to be part of the UK. Yeah.
And what have I got in return for it?
But do you feel this way about all politicians, or particularly Labour? Because I feel that way about all of them, to be fair.
I would have called myself a true blue for many years now. Again, we Conservatives in Northern Ireland don't really make much. You know, we have our own political breed over here, which, you know, some of them are okay, some of them are a bit dodgy. But anyway, I would have considered myself a blue. I admired Margaret Thatcher. I think she was the last strong leader we had in this country. But I don't have any truck with any of them whatsoever.
No, the lack of talent is really, and experience and everything. It seems we've lost all those good old politicians that even if you disagreed with them, you felt they were working hard, right? You felt they were doing something.
And earning their pay.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm with you, but you know, this is what we've got, and we can't abandon it, because otherwise we lose democracy. I mean, already you've got a supermajority for Keir Starmer on 33% of the vote. That's just terrifying to me.
Yes, and 3 million people on the streets of London having a Unite the Kingdom march is terrific. We had one here in Belfast, run by the Reverend Ian Paisley, and they didn't pay a blind bit of notice to it. You know, they just get on with it. That's the far right. They're trying to undermine the country, and they just ignore it.
I don't know. I'm with you. It's just nobody's listening, and the wrong people are shouting, as far as I'm concerned. But Brian, it's wonderful to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for that. Brian, there in Northern Ireland, they've got enough problems with their politics in Northern. I mean, it's been incredible with Stormont sort of closed half the time. Anyway, I've got to take a quick break, but I will be back in just a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning. This is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you. This is your Talkback section, and I just want to read this message here. This is very funny. Evening, Petrie. Starmer simply has to go. His problem with Mandelson is just too corrosive, past the point of no return. Yeah, I do think we're seeing the end date here. Also, I didn't bother watching the Super Bowl because I didn't have anything at stake, but I think it's pretty rich that Trump complained about not understanding what Bad Bunny was saying when Trump himself is a living word salad. That also on the website, Am I Annoying You? Am I annoying? Trump is listed in a category called What Did You Say?, which is made up of a list of people who are difficult to understand. However, Bad Bunny is nowhere to be found on that list. I am so, Snakebite, I am so going to go on that list. Am I annoying? I'm definitely having a look at that. So thank you very much indeed for that. And Stephen has said, do you mean by this morning's topic, should Labour replace Keir Starmer? Keir Starmer is Labour. Is he? And that's from Stephen. Well, he's not meant to be. He's just meant to be the leader. And the mandate was given to the party, not the man. So there you go. But he thinks it's him. Anyway, let's get back to your calls now. Is Keir Starmer delusional? Should he test his mandate with a general election? He can do that. I mean, he won't, but he could. And can we cope, really, with the disruption of yet another Prime Minister? I mean, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing now. And are you sick, as I am, of this sort of insider bickering, this sort of nonsense that goes on, which means they're not really looking after us? Sheldon is here this morning. Good morning, Sheldon. How are you?
Good morning, darling. I'm fine.
Good.
How are you?
Yeah,
I'm
all right. I can't get rid of this cold. Just can't. I just can't shake it.
The whole world is suffering, darling. Don't worry. Okay, you're not on your own.
Thank you.
There we are. So, well, Mr. Sir Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
I have no worries about Mr. Starmer's future because the staggering display of ineptitude and naivety that he displays as a top lawyer in this country, a barrister in this country, is amazing. And it makes him totally unsuitable for a career in politics.
Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting. Chris Patton, because he used to be the Hong Kong, that's why he was being interviewed. Yep. But when he was talking earlier on today, I just thought I really took some stuff from that, saying that, Keir Starmer went into politics in his 50s. He didn't have the background. He didn't have the support. He doesn't have the mates. He doesn't have the pals. He doesn't have the old boys network. So he tried to build his boys network, and Morgan McSweeney's gone, Tim Allen's gone, and he's on his own now. He's got no one.
Well, and today's display of collective unity from the cabinet, those who have chosen to climb the greasy pole in politics end up around the cabinet table.
Yeah.
Now, we have a problem there because the things that have occurred this past week, they are obviously going to cover their bottoms because they are going to earn £3,500 a week plus expenses. Yeah. Each of them. Now, if we only go to May the 16th, we won't go any further than that. They are going to go home and tell their nearest and dearest or their partners that they've just, on principle, resigned and decided to lose £42,000 by May the 16th. I don't think so. And secondly, because it takes so long to replace the Prime Minister under the system the Labour Party have, they can carry on earning that for another 9 months at least. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I mean, though, Sheldon. It's about them being self-serving. They're not there serving us. They're not serving the country.
And it's not just Labour politicians.
No.
I mean, this is across the board.
Yeah.
Anyway. And the other problem that we have, I think, is that when it comes down to this serious issue of whether or not we should be backing someone whose judgment is absolutely flawed, it bears it pales into insignificance when it comes down to what's going to happen to the royal family.
Yeah.
Because when you look at Andrew, now this is a problem. I feel sorry for the king because he's been left with a situation which, whether he knew or did not know anything, is completely indifferent. Because if you look back at the royal family and their degree of judgment, there's a problem here.
There's a massive, I mean, this could destroy the royals completely.
It could indeed, because our king's late mother, God bless her soul, Andrew was her favourite son.
Mm.
Andrew was a favourite son. And then secondly, if you remember, if you go back a little while, her favourite advisor was a gentleman who hung all her paintings in her gallery. His name was Mr. Anthony Blunt.
Oh, yeah.
Where does this leave the judgment of the royals?
Quite. Yeah. I see what you're saying. I mean, it's just, it is, I mean, I just, the idea that there is, you know, the former prince of the realm could have been sending, you know, secret economic information and worse, and could be arrested. I mean, it's just bizarre. I mean, where are we? What timeline have we slipped into?
And he's briefing against his own authority.
Yeah, against the crown.
Amazing.
Extraordinary. I mean, the king must be absolutely tearing his hair out.
I've never heard of anything like it in my whole life. This is a constitutional crisis.
It is. It really is. And they're saying that the Mandelson, because this is, like I keep saying, we're at the foothills of the Epstein files, right?
We are
there's more to come. And, you know, this Mandelson scandal is bigger than the Profumo affair.
Well, to be honest with you, I delved into the past of Mr. Epstein, right? And I don't think anybody really understands that he went to a former school where he had some good mates who were really well off with lots of connections, and he got there by error, and he used all these contacts to get on in his life. But
well, he lied, didn't he? He lied and said that he was a professor and got a job in a school.
Yes,
I mean, he managed to lie his way into a trust, a fund company. Bear Stearns, I think it was.
But to become and befriend most of the powerful people in this world is a remarkable achievement. He must be the best con man the world has ever known.
Ever, yeah. Yeah,
and the fallout is going to be enormous.
Yeah, and I think that the dam has broken with Epstein. I don't think that people are just going to, like Donald Trump wants, just move on now. You know, nothing to see here.
I thank you very much, Petrie, because I think MAGA is going to disappear.
Yeah.
When it comes to the truth, MAGA is going to disappear. And when it comes to the truth, our associations with him in this country and the whole wealthy around the world, this is going to be an absolute international disaster.
Yeah, I mean, there's already rumours about, you know, former prime ministers and threesomes, and there's all sorts still to come. And Britain is, you know, like you said, it's the rich and powerful from around the world. So, you know, it's not just America.
No, it's not. I hate
Israel.
I hate conspiracy theories, right? And I don't like to be a conspiracy theorist. But it's starting to look to me that all my suspicions were always correct. The truly powerful of this world are a cabal.
Yeah.
They will do anything rather than relinquish that power.
Yeah.
They will lie, deceive. They will sell secrets. They will do anything to stay in power. They have no dignity, loyalty, or respect for any human beings in this world other than themselves.
Completely agree. I completely agree, and it does.
I'm very cynical, don't I?
No, I don't think you do. Well, unless I am as well, which I know I am. But no, but I think, like you said, all these suspicions that we've had of people getting away with stuff are now being proven, right? Because we know that they're all in each other's pockets. They've all got dirt on each other, and they're all protecting each other. And like you said, they don't care a damn about us. They don't care, a damn about anybody but themselves, their money and their power. Sheldon, lovely to talk to you. Send my love, won't you, to your gorgeous missus, and I hope she's feeling better. John is in Northampton. Hello, John.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. What do you make of this crazy government situation that we've got at the moment?
Well, I've been giving it some thought, and what I do know is it's not democratic. What you have is, when you have a government that comes in like this, breaks all its manifesto promises, and within 6 months, I would suggest that the vast majority of people in the country would get rid of them tomorrow if they could. And yet we have them for 5 years.
Yeah.
Now, that's not democracy. And what I think
it used to be 4 years, didn't it? It was changed.
Well, it's certainly 4 years in America, I think. But here
it used to be 4 years here, but then it was upped to 5. I can't even remember who did that. I think it might have been the Tories.
And if there's a majority, if they've got a large majority, then there's nothing you can do about it. And yet, that 5 years, for quite a large number of the population, is actually the rest of their lives.
Yeah, 5 years is a long time.
What I suggest is we should look at a constitution, or what we should do is say halfway through the 5 year period, 2.5 years, we should have a confirmation vote. And if it turns out that, say, 2/3 of the population say we should have another general election at that point, that we have it. What's wrong with that?
Kind of like the midterms in the US. Because they have midterm elections that are coming up in November. I mean, I suppose the government won't change. The Republican, Donald Trump wouldn't change under the midterms, but it could change the balance of power in the way that their politics is set in terms of the House and the Senate. So, you could see a real shift in a power balance in the way they do. And so that does actually support what you're saying. It's kind of another nod to making it more democratic, if you like. So
I would make it a very straightforward confirmation vote. Now, if it turns out that most of the people in the country were happy with the government, or half and half, or even if there was 40% were happy, then straight away then they're not going to turn out to vote. In which case, you'll never achieve the 2/3 or 60%, whatever you set, because I'd make it a high bar. But if you achieve that 60%, and 60% of the country thought that this government certainly there should be another general election immediately, then that would be it. And I think that's more democratic, certainly more democratic than having a government in place that the vast majority of people in this country would like to get rid of, and you can't do that for 5 years.
The only issue I see with that is that we could be in a sort of constant rolling election process, because most people are not satisfied, are they, 2.5 years in with what's going on, and what Keir Starmer is suggesting is that he needs longer to get things done. It takes a long time to get things done in government, and maybe we're a little impatient. We expect a new government to come in and change things straight away, and potentially that we're led to believe is not possible. I'll
take the point, but I think you overcome that problem about, well, a lot of people have been complaining. Ask anybody, are you happy? They'll say no. But I think that is where you set the bar on it. If you say it's got to be 70% of the people vote to say we should have an immediate election, I'd set the bar high, because that way, if you've got a really extreme government who everybody really hates because they're not doing the right thing, then at least the population have a chance to overturn it. Because
again, looking at America, there's no real method like we have you can change leaders, you can call a general election, etc., and vote no confidence and no confidence in the government. There are methods by which we can do that. They're fairly extreme. But there doesn't appear to be anything, even an impeachment of the president, it won't change the government. They're stuck. They're stuck with them for that full year, full term. I don't mind the idea of what you're saying. The thing that I'm thinking, though, is, maybe if we could change the balance in the House, because at the moment, Keir Starmer has got a majority, hasn't he, because of the way that MPs are voted for in their local constituencies. So he's likely to get everything he wants to go through, right? That's the balance of power when we have fewer people voting one way than the other way, or more people voting one way than the other way. Yes. So maybe there's a potential, isn't there, if we could figure it out, to shift the balance of power in the House and say, right, now we're going to block you from doing the things that we don't want you to do.
Well, I think that'd be very, very difficult, really.
It would, because of the way we elect.
You can either go to proportional representation, or you have first past the post. I personally prefer first past the post, because otherwise you're going to get a weak government, like you have in, say Italy, where you have 5 different parties and they've all got 10% of the vote. You never really get anywhere.
But we're in danger of heading that way anyway, because Keir Starmer got this massive majority on 33% of the vote. So, that we get the opposite of that, don't we? We get a government that's strong for the wrong reasons, right? Yes. It's only strong because of our system, and they become this mandated powerhouse with 33% of the population voting for them.
Yes, and they're certainly, because they've got a vested interest, these MPs, in their jobs. They
want to keep the voting.
Vote themselves out, no matter what happens.
Exactly.
Almost. And that's why I say, when you have a government with such a large majority, that what is wrong with having a midway, only every 2.5 years through, a confirmation vote? If you don't want to turn out for that vote, well, that's all well and good. You're never going to reach that high bar, 65%. Yeah. And so those that do turn out, well, that's no problem.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind that idea at all. I'd be happier to vote more often if it meant we got a government that actually worked, and that is the truth. Because at the moment, this is just a shower, isn't it? It's just it isn't working at all.
It's as I said, there's an awful lot of people in this country who this will be the last government they ever have if it's 5 years. 5 years. And they'll never see another one.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
And what damage can they do in the next 3 years as well? Next 3.5 years.
Precisely. It cannot be, and this is where it comes back to what I started with. It cannot be democratic. This what we have here. This system we've got. It works pretty much because most governments are reasonable and they're not too extreme, and they don't have that much of a majority, and things can happen. But when you've got this situation where we've got a government that everybody would vote out tomorrow, a lot of people would, who are not even fulfilling their pledges, and really, I think, ruining the country. And we ought to, if we say we live in a democracy, then we ought to have midway through, I think, a little confirmation vote.
Yeah, test the mandate.
We're not saying that kicks the government out. All we're saying is it calls another general election. Yeah. In which case, then the people have got everybody then again has another chance to say yes, let's keep them or not.
Yeah, I can't see many problems with it apart from people getting tired of voting. But look, if there was some form of confirmation, which I suppose is what the midterms in the US is all about, isn't it? John, great call. Thank you very much indeed. I've got to take a break, but I will be back in a mo.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good morning. This is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And we're talking about Keir Starmer, and asking really if he should test his mandate, perhaps with a general election. He could do that constitutionally. He's unlikely to. And the other question really is, could we honestly cope with another Prime Minister? I've had enough. I don't know if it's better the devil you know. Jack has said, yes, absolutely, we need another election. People are fed up with the current so-called Labour leadership, and it's really now time for a change. There's a lot of frustration out there, and folks want fresh ideas and real direction with everything going on, such as the economy, social issues. It's clear we need a government that truly reflects what the great British public wants. This isn't just about accountability. It's about giving people a chance to voice their dissatisfaction and make their choices clear. Elections can spark real engagement in politics, and that's crucial for a functioning democracy, just exactly as we were just saying there. So come on, Keir, stop dragging your feet and call for a general election. I tell you, he's not going to do that, but he might resign at some point, but I don't think he's doing that. Gary says, I don't think I could cope with another PM. I think Starmer is the best of a bad bunch with Labour. They say give him enough rope, but Starmer has hung himself without the use of anyone's rope. I do think anyone else taking over would be worse for us. And that's from Gary in Glasgow. Yeah, I mean, he's just phenomenally good at punching himself in the face, Keir Starmer. I've never seen anybody like it, really. This one says we need a general election. This country's at breaking point. Maybe we now need an election each 2 years to stop the lid coming off the boiling pan. Would you want to vote every 2 years? I mean, it's hard enough getting people to turn out once every 5 years. Joanna says Mandelson is like knotweed. And it's just as difficult to get rid of as well. He is so entwined in the Labour Party with the scandal and with all the other resignations. I think Starmer should call an election, especially if the economy and the gilt start to suffer and decline. I also think the King should step down in favour of William. This goes too deep, and this will save the monarchy. This is at the heart of our democracy. It's hardly a glass of wine and a piece of birthday cake. Yeah, it's the royal family. They're in I mean, what Andrew has done is absolutely extraordinary. It's unbelievable, the damage that he's doing to the royal family. Terry is in Dover. Hello, Terry.
Well, good evening, Petrie.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, good morning. That's true. Yes, yes. I was going to say a fairly specific thing, but listening to all those comments you've just read out there, it just shows you how difficult it is, because there's so many different aspects of this. Calling the election, and do we need a new leader, and all the rest of it. He's not going to call an election because
he knows he'd lose.
And also, we borrow so much money, it's going to affect the gilt markets, and it could be very, very serious. And so I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, well, you saw the yields go up and down like a yo-yo today on the gilt market. Yeah. When Anas Sawar said that Keir should leave, the yields went up. Yeah. And then when all the politicians, all the cabinet members all went, no, we love Keir Starmer, they went back down again. So you're right with the gilts and the bonds and the yields and the borrowing.
Another aspect of it, because I heard Quentin Letts of the Daily Mail today say a very interesting point. He said that Anas Sawar shot himself in the foot because he said he was going to make this announcement about an hour or two before, and Quentin Letts said, well, that gave whoever's in the comms in Downing Street now, the chap resigned, but there must be somebody there. Somebody mobilised all the cabinet ministers to come out and come out with all the virtually identical template statements.
Yeah, they did. We noticed that. But that again, so they've kind of isolated him now, haven't they? He's a pariah, I would have thought.
Oh, and I don't know what they're going to do up in Scotland now. I mean, he's made the situation worse up there, hasn't he? I mean, unless Labour voters up there sort of coalesce round him and say, "Oh, good chap, Anas Sawar,
You've given one to Westminster. I mean, that's what John Boothman was suggesting earlier on. It could be that because Scotland's not too fond of Westminster, that they might see that as a bonus. That Anna stood up to Westminster, if you like, gave him a bloody nose.
Yeah, coming back to whether Keir Starmer should, we need a new Prime Minister. I would say no at the moment because, to be honest, he's done well on the world stage, Ukraine and Trump, etc. And people know him there. And also,
can you just imagine Angela Rayner out on the world stage?
No, I can't. No.
I can't. I'm sorry, I can't. And I just can't. I just had a message from a friend of mine actually saying I can't. In my opinion, I don't see Angela Rayner as being a world stateswoman.
No, well, she called the Tories scum, didn't she, at one point? Yeah. So I don't think that. I think that resonates. That's still. I mean, she's gone quiet. I think she was the first one that came out. I think she's gone quiet now because her stamp duty is still with HMRC. And
yeah, it is. But there was a website. Hang on a minute. I can't remember which paper it was. There was very briefly a website popped up. It was calling for Angela Rayner. Oh, here we go. It was on The Guardian. Rayner for Leader website briefly appeared online. An unfinished website claiming to launch Angela Rayner's Labour leadership campaign was published temporarily, prompting a further speculation that the former Deputy PM could be gearing up for a leadership contest. So that's not too subtle, is it, either?
No, well, I mean, who else is there? I mean, they're talking about West Streeting being, friends with Peter Mandelson.
Yeah.
And some talk that he was in cahoots with Anas Sarwar to make this statement to try and get the ball rolling, but I don't know. But he's got a very, very small majority in Ilford North, wherever it is.
Yeah, and he's worried about losing that.
Yeah, he could lose that.
So he could be out of the running. Yeah, I mean, this is the other thing with the leadership. Who's going to be left standing after May as an MP to challenge Keir Starmer?
He probably won't survive after this by-election in a couple of weeks' time, and the election and the local elections.
Yeah, in May.
But who knows? I mean, who else is there? I mean, Ed Miliband. He's just net zero.
Yeah.
Eccentric, really, I think.
And we've had him before, right?
Pardon?
He's been around before, so we don't want him again.
No. I tell you, there's somebody who. I was going to say there's two things that you consider about leaders. There's the two P's, I call it, policy and personality. Obviously, Keir Starmer's not got much of a personality. Well, even his policies, he's done so many U-turns. But there's somebody who's been on the airways quite often lately, who I've got a lot of time for, and that is Douglas Alexander. He's been around for a long time. He's very, very clever, very intelligent, and he comes across so well.
And that's where Keir Starmer just falls down, isn't it? He's not a communicator. We don't even know what he stands for, right? We don't know anything about him. We don't know anything about the direction he's pulling the country into. There's no imaging from him. There's nothing.
What do you think should happen at the moment?
I think what will happen is that he'll stay in place. He won't resign. He'll be there. I think the Gorton by-election coming up and Denton by-election will give him a bloody nose. I think that will release Andy Burnham, and he may find another safe seat.
Yeah, I think that as well.
I think he may find another safe seat.
I think that who's that MP? Clive Lewis, I think. He said a few weeks ago he's the Norwich MP, and he's on the left. He's prepared to give up his seat. I think that could happen.
I do too, and I don't think that Keir Starmer can block Andy Burnham again. So
he's too weak to do it.
Yeah, I agree. So I think that Andy Burnham may be the front runner, but it'll take a while. But somebody will give up their seat for Burnham, and I think Burnham would win it, and then the chase is on. But I don't think Starmer will survive. I don't think he'll be.
How left is he? I mean, what's his policies going to be? Is he going to ease down a bit on net zero? I mean,
it's difficult to know. I mean, look, you'd have to look to Manchester, and everybody thinks he's done a really good job in Manchester. So it's like, I think Burnham has got the charisma. I think he's got the experience. He's got the experience and he's got the support. Maybe. Let's wait and see if we're right, Terry.
Yeah.
I reckon we are. I think we're onto something.
Probably.
I think so. Listen, it's lovely to talk to you. I've got to go because I'm late to a break, but thank you very much indeed for that. Yeah, I think Starmer will stay until Burnham's in a position to take his job. That's what I think. A quick break. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good morning. This is Talk and this is Talkback and this is Petrie with you until the top of the hour. Ernie has sent a message saying, hi, if the elected government actually carried out what it promised in their manifesto, there wouldn't be a problem. That's what people voted for. But if you promise something in your manifesto just to get into power and had no intention of carrying it out, and after a year you still haven't and the country is suffering because of it, then there should be an election. This government hasn't done anything at all it promised us in the manifesto, and that is so wrong. I agree. This is why I think that they should be held responsible. It should be legal, shouldn't it? That if they make a promise, then they've got to stick to it. Otherwise, we'll promise anything, a free unicorn each. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense, does it? Carol is in Manchester. Good morning, Carol. How are you?
Oh, good morning. Good morning. Fantastic programme as usual. Fantastic. I'm just going to go out of every politician. I'm just going to go with the real people that vote for the politicians. And with what I've learned definitely over the last 18 months, is like people now are literally looking more into politicians. Not just the politicians, but majority of people, where I live in Manchester anyway, it's always been Labour, 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 Labour. Some of them even got an idea who the prime ministers or the leaders or whatever's name is. And I think what it comes down to now is people have educated themselves more of what goes on within politics, and over the years and years, I've always been political anyway, but over the years now I'm gathering that people, especially young people, are literally educating themselves with politics, because politics is part of their life.
It is all of our lives. And this is a lot of people who say to me, I don't vote. I'm like, oh, come on. I mean, look, it's difficult to vote sometimes because I don't like any of them. But you know, we are responsible for who we get, who is elected. And it affects every single part of our lives.
And that's what I've been arguing with my friends, with my husband, with everybody. You know, for God's sake, at the end of the day, because I'm so political, and I do have to shut my mouth many a time in, just like you say, don't argue with
religion or politics.
Exactly. And I have been, and a lot of my friends know me anyway, and I do try to shut my mouth. It's very hard with it. But at the end of the day, we are to blame. You know, like you keep saying about, you know, like not you, but we all, I've heard it over and over this week, especially today, you know, like about politicians, we are to blame as well. You know, like we put these people in here for 5 years.
Yeah.
Right? And then we moan. You know, like unfortunately, it's been 18 months, right? And I'll be honest, it's been a disaster. Absolutely disaster. It don't matter. You know, like I'm trying to be, you know, like not giving away with where I go. But it's been a disaster.
Yeah.
It's the worst I've ever seen in my lifetime. You know, like back, here, forward, what you call it. And then you've got people who are moaning, and you know who are moaning, my friends, you put them there. Because you know why? Because you didn't look into it enough. And that is what we've got to do. We have to look in. We are responsible as well to put these people in power. You know, we can't keep saying
and we have to hold them to account more than we're doing by turning up to sort of local meetings and actually become, as you're saying, more politically literate. We have to know what they plan to do, not just look at a manifesto, not just look at one policy, which is, you know, mostly what people will...
is like regarding... It's like when they get sacked or, you know, like they resign or whatever, £50,000, you know, like they get this or whatever. We need to look into it. We need to say, you should not. They are making their own rules.
Yeah.
And you know why? Because we're quiet.
Yeah.
We're quiet. And we need to get involved to say, well, why is that happening? Why is this happening? Why is that happening? We have petitions, you know, that go round and things that are going on in streets, no disrespect, mainly in London, more than anywhere else. You know, like for different things that are to different countries or different what, and we're not looking after our own. We need to sort our own things out here. Look after your own home. Complain about the things that are going on in this country, you know, like make this country strong, and then we can help other countries or other things that are going on. We're so weak at the moment, and the weak is because of us.
Yeah, and not enough people, not only are not getting themselves politically literate, but they're not bothering to vote, and that's how we see this supermajority Labour government be swept into power on 33%.
I mean,
of the country. I mean, it's unimaginable,
and the next
government will be, I think it will be a coalition, which is worse, but that'll be on 20% or 32%. You know, that's it's not good enough that only 30% of the people wanted this and 100% of the people have got it.